The Cheating Death Podcast is a satirical program containing objective information about anything and everything under the sun. We are not religious, nor are we political. If we are guilty, then we are analytical. This program is not for those in whom choose to follow the whims and the woes of the crowd, of the herd. This program is designed for those in whom wish to think outside of the box. But we already know that you are going to know exactly how you can cheat death. On today's episode of the Cheating Death Podcast, we discuss what makes bread so beautiful. The delicious, voluminous, and ever so filling, tasty treat that also happens to incorporate a large quantity of various foods all around the world. We provide you with a top 5 list of our favorite breads of the program, an all-new Annihilation Announcement, and to reiterate, we have put the business spotlight on hold until the fall. So, your joke of the episode, your new time, the Annihilation Announcement moving forth henceforward, dear listeners. You know by now that within the confines of this program, you are going to experience information and mind saturation. Though you are already firmly aware of exactly what you must do next, and that is put your feet up, grab that iced coffee, and let us tell you how you can cheat death. This is your news anchor, the Cleric of Chaos, and this is your Annihilation Announcement. Over the eons, we ask ourselves a league of questions. A fortress of answers dwell before us in each and every single possible scenario. But one of the things that we constantly miss, we identify incorrectly, and that we do what we can to push forward in a time of uncertainty, is that which we ask ourselves why we move forward. Why don't we just drift? Why don't we just stagnate? Why is it that we must always be moving forward? Doesn't everybody die? Yes, everyone does die. But if you are putting yourself in a position to where you are drifting and you are settling for people and things that mean the world to you, when they would not give you the world. This is a time to where you would need to look inside of your brain and inside of your heart to truly understand exactly what it is to do to move beyond that particular mindset, to understand that you should not be settling, to understand that you should be giving yourself more grace, more patience, more time, more understanding. But see, in modern society, we do not do that. We give ourselves the illusion of gratitude by looking towards the sun and identifying the points of contention within ourselves, by trying to see exactly what it is that brings us to the table, so to speak. We question our very worth on a daily basis. We look in the mirror and we ask ourselves why we continue to push forward, why we continue to move on, why we continue to try and reach a new height to where we were not previously aware existed before. It is noted that within these particular times that life is not something that we can quantify, because it is different for each and every single person who walks the planet. We can provide rubrics, guidelines. Heck, we can even give people an opportunity to shine within themselves. But what happens is people lose their minds, their souls, their hearts, their compassion. They lose their very will to move. So it is in this time that we must approach it differently. Especially if you yourself are trying in every single conceivable way to identify the points of contention within the mind that holds you dearly. There are no questions that are easily rectifiable or solvable within the answers that we seek. How we identify what we can do to be better people is not a book that you can open and skip to the answer key and review the glossary. It is imperative during these times that you do what you can to learn from life, to learn from other people, to try and configure solutions that are important and are objective, without the rumination and the identification of someone's situation. You don't really know the exact element of everything that they are going through. Now, there are ways that this is something to circumvent. Someone decides to treat you with hostility when you are nothing but benevolent. You have an emotional capacity. No one is going to blame you for reacting in kind. However, you must determine, is that individual, that entity, that group, that situation, or that particular conundrum worth your energy and worth your time? It is a unique world, to say the least, that we give ourselves so many chances to feel in certain types of ways. But what is most imperative in these particular idioms and in these life situations is that we are gracious, is that we are patient, and is that we do our best with the time that we have. Because if we are not trying to move forward, and we instead choose to stagnate and regress, then the only people that we are harming are ourselves, as the world will move on without you. This has been your news anchor, the Cleric of Chaos, and this has been your Annihilation Announcement. Willkommen, meine Freunde. Guten Morgen, guten Tage und eine gute Nacht. Ist deine Künstler, deine Schauspieler, deine Vernichter, deine Ausfresser und deine Ausländer. Ich bin deine Cleric of Chaos und heute ist ein schöner Tag. We are going to discuss the beauty and the brilliance and the benevolence and the absolute bliss that bread provides. Yes, dear listeners, the Bread Podcast has finally come to fruition. We are going to quote-unquote get this bread from this particular episode, given, of course, the reliability statistics as well as the certain metrics that we have in place make it so that this is downloaded a whole bunch. So tell your friends and tell your family to listen to the Bread episode. But in all seriousness, ladies and gentlemen, you came here to listen to the Cleric muse about bread, how and why it is the absolute benevolent being that it is, why it shapes so much of what we consume, and how and why it could possibly be so tasty. We ask ourselves these types of questions. We bake our own bread in some cases. Some of us, in some cases, remember the dear, dire times of the absurd, lovely glitch in the matrix that was the pandemic. Some of us decided to use that time to learn how to bake sourdough bread, one of the most delicious, nutritious, and of course, not avaricious breads of our time. When we look at why bread is so good, we have to ask ourselves how and why it came to be such a staple of our diet. Well, simply put, ladies and gentlemen, wheat is a crop that is grown in a large amount of the world. You take into consideration just how many wheat crops you'll pass when you're driving through a rural area, and you understand that all of that goes towards milling. All of that is combined with flour. All of that is combined with elements and ingredients to make very tasty breads. And bread is a staple point to our diet because it gives you an opportunity to consume something that is filling, to consume something that will assist in absorbing some of the other elements of the foods that you eat, and in some cases makes it a bit easier for digestion. Now, of course, when we're taking into consideration how and why bread became such a staple, we must look all the way back to the 1800s in Victorian times, when farmers, sharecroppers, agricultural experts, and enthusiasts were always trying to ensure that their families were fed. One of the easiest crops to grow during that time was bread. Fun fact, did you know that the space across from the World Trade Center in New York City, New York, United States of America, for a time in the 1900s, had a giant wheat field growing right there, right in front of the most important financial district in the entire state? Yes, for there was a massive crop of wheat that was grown that was worth approximately $4.3 billion on the land in which it was grown, utilized as an artistic project to delineate and to variate the financial district between the humble beginnings of old America. Bread has been around for as long as many will be able to look through the history books, giving people an opportunity to eat something voluminous, something that was home-cooked, stone-baked, and in many different ways was given an opportunity to try out with new different foods and new ideas and solutions. We all are aware that whenever we have soup or stews, a toasty bread or a baguette or a garlic bread is more often than not one of the most delicious elements that we can add to said meal. It is in this time that we look forward to eating the yummy bread, and we make it a staple of our regular diets. Going all the way through from the 1800s all the way to the early 1900s, before Kellogg had you convinced that breakfast was the most important meal of the day, bread was utilized in a very constructive way and was eaten fairly regularly along with other foods: lentils, beans, chicken, beef, pork, eggs, so on and so on. Bread is just as important to our diets as is the benevolent water. To the same extent of life-serving and life-saving solutions? No. But is it still tasty? Absolutely. You take into consideration just how bread amplifies a sandwich, just how bread amplifies a wrap, just how bread amplifies just about anything that it becomes involved in. And you can easily understand as to how and why bread itself is so delicious, so unique in the context and the structure as to how well it forms each and every single type of diet out there. Almost every culture has a special type of bread. Naan bread, for example, is one of the tastiest bits of bread that anyone could ever eat. Sourdough is, in and of itself, a very ubiquitous bread. But regardless of how you choose to consume your bread, or whether or not you choose to eat them with sandwiches or not, understand, dear listener, that your bread is the best bread. Until next time, thank you for tuning in today. Take care of yourselves and each other. At the top of today's episode, we promised you a list of our top 5 favorite breads, because without an episode of bread, what would this top 5 list be if it was not bread-related? Coming in at number 5, we of course have the standardized Olive Garden garlic bread. Coming in at number 4, we have pretzel bread. Coming in at number 3, we of course have the legendary Leviathan known as the baguette. Coming in at number 2, we have one of the most delicious and most unique and robust breads known to man, and that of course is the beautiful, the blissful German rustica bread. And coming in at number 1, the universal favorite of the vast majority of individuals in whom we know, it is the benevolent sourdough. What is your top 5 list of your favorite breads? Feel free to comment on the video below. Today's joke has been brought to you by the Cleric of Chaos. A couple of roommates were having a little bit of trouble sleeping, and one was offering to the other, "Hey, you might want to go to bed, relax yourself a little." And, time passes, and about 15 minutes later, there's a little rustling in the kitchen. A little bit worried that there might be an invader coming on in. As it turns out, you gaze upon the dark kitchen and you see the silhouette of your roommate, and you say, "Weren't you supposed to go to bed?" And at which point they respond to you, "Well, dear sir, that is exactly what I am doing. You told me to go to bread." We look at bread in such a way that most individuals, when it comes down to asking somebody what their favorite bread is, you could get a litany of answers. Some people, for some reason, may like Texas toast, along with garlic bread and spaghetti and or fettuccine, specifically because of the texture and the consistency of the particular type of bread itself. However, you may also fly all the way across the world to an area of the land in which they speak nothing of the plights of the North American bread system, and they speak highly of the sourdoughs, of the baguettes, of everything that comes before. Because when you take into consideration just how beautiful bread is, ladies and gentlemen, it cannot ever be understated. We do so much to try and configure and identify something that pairs along with it, that each and every single restaurant that we go to, more often than not, gives you an option to have something with a delicious, yummy, freshly baked bit of bread. Take into consideration just how much people love Olive Garden's unlimited breadsticks. You would be daft to not at least take advantage of trying out a little bit of it here and there. Give yourself an opportunity to truly see exactly how tasty that bread can be. Oh yes, you spice bread just properly, and it is going to be an absolutely outstanding opportunity and a beautiful culinary experience for you, dear listener. We can conclude many things about the beauty, the benevolence, the brilliance of bread. But how each and every single individual looks at it and or identifies what their particular preference in bread is, ultimately is up to them. Whether you prefer a baguette along with soup, or whether you prefer a nice delicious sourdough from which to make a delicious deli sandwich from, or whether or not you want to go all the way back to 1942 and look at the Dagwood comics and revel and marvel in the size of the sandwiches that they so put forth. It is irrelevant, for bread is one of those things that is both beautiful and brilliant in its own way. It gives us an opportunity to truly see just how tasty things can be, and when you look at things in that way, you must understand that this bread is a good way to start your day. And especially if you take into consider the colloquial term for bread, Think about how much we love it on such a scale that we utilize it for money, that we utilize it for shoes in some cases, that we utilize it for athletic terms. Goodness gracious, for eons. Part of the human anatomy used to be colloquially referred to as the bread basket. Why would it be called a bread basket if people did not consume bread in large quantities, of course? But this is the beauty and the benevolence of bread. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. The Chinny Dev Podcast is brought to you by Nach dem Leben CRDVC, Cleric of Chaos, and where you can find all podcasts on all platforms. Follow us at youtube.com/@Cleric of Chaos, and all of our social media listed in the episodes and podcast description. Follow each and every single one of our friends, producers, consultants, and directors at the links in the episodes and in the podcast description. If you would like to support the program, you can buy merch, you can buy a cameo, or you can make a one-time payment in the episodes and in the podcast description as well. We thank you for your support. If you or anyone you know is experiencing psychiatric duress, gambling abuse, substance withdrawal, or any emergency calamity, please visit the toll-free telephone numbers listed in the episodes and in the podcast's description. And if you are looking at adopting a playful puppy or a cute kitten, please visit your local animal adoption rescue center as they are in dire need of your support. Visit yummypets.com/voice. Sign up for a free account and click the button every day so cats and dogs have a chance to get 330 pounds of kibble to their animal shelter. Dear listener, we have said this time and time again, and we will repeat to say it until the end of our existence. Your life is not an easy one-track solution. It is not a way for you to look towards the horizon and already know everything that is going to come before you. There will be challenges, there will be obstacles and areas of opportunity, but all that matters is you continue to wage war. And remember, we're pulling for you. We are all in this together.